Here's my story. Be 16. Be black in a family down in Alabama. They farm and own a huge amount of land down in Huntsville. Uncle owns big house and a bunch of trailers they put in the woods for hunting or camping. Down south, cousins suggest that we go out there to camp. Now I'm a city kid from Chicago, so they tease the fuck out of me. Collect food, kill a pig and some chickens, and bring necessities to camp out for a few days. We get to the camp and it's obvious something is weird. There's this weird electric smell like right before a storm, like ozone. We think nothing of it and unpack and go down to a little creek to swim for a few hours. All of a sudden, some older white guy and a white teenager come out of the bushes. He has a shotgun in the crook of his arm and says hello and asks us what we're doing this far back in the woods. Tell him my uncle, who he knows, and says we're out camping. He tells us we need to be real careful out here and stick together. There was a big animal in the woods. His son, who's my age, asks if he can stay and hang out with us. He says okay. I'm going to stop green texting because the story is fairly long and the format is harder to write in. So we end up playing football. Dicking around with me, there's the white kid, Tanner, 5 of my cousins, and then 4 of their friends. In total, there are 5 girls and 6 boys. We all were around 15 to 17. We ended up just dicking the day away. So we head back to the camp and pulling out some stuff for a campfire. The trailers both had kitchenettes. Tanner says that his family's property sits up against my uncle's. He wants to run home and ask his dad if he can come out camping with us. My cousin Rooster says he's going to go with him since it's going to get dark soon. One of the girls also wants to tag along. It's about 7 o'clock and it's starting to get dark. They take flashlights and take the trail toward Tan's property. The rest of us chill, make s'mores, drink, and kiss on the girls. About 30-40 minutes later, there's the smell of ozone again. You can smell it over the smell of the fire we had started. This really nasty, coppery smell like right after you have a nosebleed, and it stopped. It wasn't exactly like dried blood, but it was that nasty, metallic, back of your throat smell. We immediately think it's some kind of electrical malfunction, or someone left a hot plate on it or some shit. We search the trailers and nothing is on, and we all can smell it. All of a sudden, we can hear people booking down the path towards us, and Rooster, Tan, and the girl all come running to the clearing out of breath. And they don't even break stride, they all run right into the trailer, right by where the fire is. We all get the fuck out of there and into trailers. They end up calming down, even though Rooster is crying his fucking eyes out at this point. All the while, the fire is guttering lower and lower, so my other cousins say fuck it, about to go outside to get the generator out of a shed between the trailers. Tanner goes, fuck no, lock the front door, ain't nobody else going outside. He's been crying too, and his eyes are bloodshot and puffy, and his pants are dirty as shit. He goes on to tell us that they went up to his house. His father said sure, he could go out camping, but to make sure they were careful on the way back, and that maybe they should take one of the hunting rifles just in case. Evidently, Tanner had seen something in their yard a few days before. One of their pigs had come up, ripped up and half-eaten. They assumed it was some big cats or coyotes, even though they don't usually fuck with live animals. He got upstairs and packed his stuff and told his dad they'd be okay without the rifle because coyotes avoid people. So they started walking back to where we were camping. So Brewster finally stopped crying and shaking. The girl already had, but she was just staring out the window with a dumb look on her face. He says they'd gotten halfway into the woods towards the camp when they started to hear shit in the forest. It was almost pitch black by this time, so they weren't sure at first what the fuck it was. The girl says that she heard something in the bushes right off the trail, and they all beamed their flashlights over there, and there was someone standing back in the woods in a little hollow. Rooster said they shouted at him and told him that he was scaring the fuck out of them, what a dick he was. He says that's when he realized that the guy was facing away from them. So they keep walking, and they start smelling the nasty coppery ozone smell. They say that they look off into the forest on the opposite side, and it's a dude standing in the forest, backward, slightly closer to the path. So they now start power walking, and Tan keeps going, I should have taken the fucking rifle. As they're telling the story, the smell is still super strong even inside the cabin. They say after that they started walking faster. A kind of low gibbering had started, coming from both sides of the woods. And as they started booking it back to the trailer, the girl said she had flashed her flashlight out into the woods to the side of them and had seen something jerking itself through the woods. The gibbering just got louder and louder, and when they could see the light from our campfire, something had come out of the woods about 40 feet behind them onto the track, and they just flat out ran as hard as they could to the trailer. So we're out in the fucking woods, and we're assuming at this point it's some rednecks or some shit trying to fuck with us. All of a sudden, my other cousin, Junior, starts going on about he went to school with a native kid, and that was telling about the Goatman or some shit. We promptly tell him to shut the fuck up because I don't need any spooky talk right now. But he just keeps going on and on about how it's the fucking Goatman and how we're in his woods and blah blah blah. Now, at the time, I'd never heard of this Goatman or any of that, but then a couple of years ago, the year before I graduated from college, I had a Meenom for a roommate, and I ended up asking him about it. And to sum it up, it's basically a fucking man with the head of a goat, and he can shapeshift, and he gets among groups of people to terrorize them. It's also supposed to be kind of like the Wendigo, and it's bad mojo to even talk about it, and even worse if you see it. Keep in mind, I don't know this back when I was 16, so my cousin is going, the Goatman's gonna get and fucking get us! The girls are all terrified, and my cousins and I are all fucking trying to figure out if it's just hillbillies or if it's some animal. So all of a sudden, the smell just goes away. Like, to this day, I haven't even experienced anything like it. Like, usually, smells fade away or lessen. It was just literally there 1 second, and then not the next. So, it's after an hour, making around 9 or 10. We stopped shitting bricks enough to go back outside and stoke the fire again. We figure it was just some assholes trying to fuck with us or something, so we don't go back home. Because we think if we do, they'll chase us to the woods or some crazy shit. Nothing else weird happens that night, and we just stay another night. And for the main part of the night, nothing happens. About 1 in the morning, we're outside getting drunk and telling ghost stories. As someone is finishing some too spooky story, I don't remember what about, the smell comes back. It's so fucking strong when a girl literally starts vomiting. I stand up, and you can actually feel how clammy the air is. I say we should get inside, and this isn't right. We should have just fucking left. We all go back inside, and we're standing around. My cousin just keeps going on about how it's the Goatman, and my cousin Rooster tries to shut him the fuck up, and all the while I'm just feeling that something is wrong, and I can't figure out what the fuck that is. We end up sitting there for a while. The smell is just strong, and we're terrified, and all huddled in the camper. We end up cooking brats for everybody because nobody wants to go outside. It's one of those packs with 4 brats. We had a total of 3 packs. I grill them up on the stove and give everybody a hot dog. I get mine. After a while, one of my cousins gets up and goes over to the pot to get another one. He starts grumbling how I only get 2 brats, everybody else only got 1. And I look at him like he's fucking stupid. I tell him that everybody only got 1 because there were only 12 brats. If he wants more, he should open up another pack and cook some more. That's when a girl that had been out with Rooster and Tan just starts screaming, "Oh Jesus, oh Lord, get it out!" She's crying and shivering, and then it dawns on the cousin standing up that what the fuck is wrong. Me and him both glance around the room, and then I feel my heart fucking sink. I run the fuck out of the cabin, and the girl runs out with us. The trailer door is banging against the side of the trailer as everybody books out of the cabin. One of my cousin's friends asks us what the fuck is wrong. I start counting us. There's only 11 now. I shit you not, my cousin verified. There have been 12 people in the cabin, but being that everybody didn't really know each other well, nobody had really noticed the whole fucking time that there was an extra person. And then I realized earlier that I noticed something was off. You know how when you're just dicking around having a good time, you don't sweat the smallest shit and you don't keep track of certain stuff? I'm dead sure that someone else had been in the trailer with us and that they had been there for at least a fucking day eating with us. What makes it worse is I could figure out which one because I don't think anyone ever actually interacted with the other person or the Goatman or whatever. The girl kept praying to Jesus and we're all sitting outside. Eventually we get big ass sticks and go back in the cabin, but there's nobody in there. We count again and there's 11 people. We go back into the trailer and lock the door. We explain what the fuck happened. The girl says that she realized too, and that she was about to say something. The person sitting next to her grabbed her leg hard and leaned over toward her and said something she couldn't understand. So we're pretty much scared as all fuck as we huddle together and I fall asleep. When I wake up, the sun is coming up and half the people are asleep and the other half are packing our shit up. We all want to walk back home, but like 4 people want to stay until the sun is all the way up. And some people think they were just fucking around and still want to stay at the trailers. I just want to get the fuck out of the woods. The girl's name was Kira, the one that the Goatman had touched. Anyway, I asked her if she really thinks it was something bad, and she says she just wants to go home and she doesn't want to be out in the woods alone for another night. So we decided to split up. The 4 that want to go can go, but I have to stay because I have the keys to the cabin. It's my uncle's and I have to lock up. I'm super pissed at this point because I feel like people aren't taking this shit seriously, and I definitely didn't want to be out in the woods for another night. I spend the rest of the day trying to convince the rest of the people, now 4 girls and 4 guys, to get the fuck out of Dodge. Tanner leaves with them to go get a rifle and says he's going to be back. So there's just 7 of us left by 4 p.m. At around 5 p.m. he hasn't made it back yet, and we're getting extremely fucking antsy. And the only reason I stopped begging him to go back was because he went to get a gun. It's about 5:30 or so when the one cousin that did stay says that the girl Kira is outside. We all look outside, and sure enough, she's standing by the fire pit with her back to the cabin. I'm thinking to myself, if she was so fucking scared, why the hell would she come back? And then I get this nasty feeling in my gut. Keep in mind, the coppery smell has been gone. Now I realize I can smell just a twinge of it. I say this to the rest of them and everybody, and these are people that wanted to stay in the fucking woods after we had the Goatman in our midst, is laughing at me, and asking do I set this up to scare them. I'm looking at them like, I'm not fucking bullshitting you at all right now. I asked them why the fuck would I play like that? So one of the girls goes outside to get Kira. She gets halfway to her and stops cold. Kira starts heaving. I don't know how the fuck to describe it. Sort of like if someone with their back turned was laughing without actually making any sound. It was this fact that made me realize there was not a fucking sound in the whole woods. It was dead silent. This was like later in September, so it was still fairly hot at the time, but it was super chilly some days too, and you could usually hear big-ass geese honking or some kind of birds or squirrels chit-chatting. So I step out the tilt door and tell her to come back in the fucking trailer right goddamn now. She backs up into the trailer and we lock the fucking door. We pull down all the shades except one and put a guy in there in the chair to watch her. She stands there for another 20 minutes or so. The guy turns to say she's still there, and then there's a huge fucking bang on the door. We all jump the fuck up and scramble around the living room with the trailer. The banging is super fucking loud. So now my cousin is holding one of the girls, and the other 2 are kind of giggling with nervous laughter, and me and the other 2 guys are shitting bricks. Then we hear Tan. He's screaming, "Let me the fuck in! Stop fucking playing!" So we go over to the door and open it, and he stumbles in with a rifle. There's nobody else outside. Evidently, he had walked out to the campsite. Nothing weird happened in the forest, but he had seen a girl, mind you. He said it was not Kira standing there. When he got to the edge of the clearing, she had turned toward him with a slack-jawed look, and just stared him down, slowly tracking him as he walked around the outside of the clearing towards the camp. He said it wasn't until he was almost halfway to the trailer that he realized that she was getting closer to him. She'd started off by the fire, and without him even seeing her move, she had been turning, inching closer. He said he just ran the rest of the way back to the cabin thinking it would open, and when he got to the door and it was locked, he turned, and about half the distance to the door, he looks around the room and then gets super pale. He pulls me to the side and whispers in my ear, "You know there are only 7 of us in here, right?" I get that feeling when your stomach drops to your nuts. It had been back inside of the trailer while we were sorting out who was going where, and then when we all went outside to talk early in the day, it had just slipped right back in. We looked out the window and there's nobody there. So we recount everybody, and then basically, I go over and ask everybody how many people there were earlier. Everybody says 8. I say, well, how many are there now? They all do the count and then realize there are now only 7 people in the cabin. So Tennant brought back a couple of boxes of ammo in his rifle, and he had told his dad that there was some kind of animal in the forest because he didn't think his dad would believe him. He said it was the Goatman. He said that his cousin is supposed to be coming down in a few hours, and that in the morning we can all go to his place, and his cousin will drive us home. Now I'm really fucking terrified because I at least feel better. But I at least feel better because I can be American and shoot the fuck whatever it is if it comes back. But then my cousin gets in this huge argument with one of the girls because she thinks that I'm trying to be funny and prank them, and then she's getting really scared and that it's not funny. He keeps telling her I'm not that kind of person, and she says, well, how do we know that girl wasn't just Tanner in a wig? Or if it's really the Goatman, how do we know that this is a real Tanner and that Goatman just didn't kill Tanner in the woods and take his gun? So we fucking get in this huge argument about this, where me and Tanner are like, we could seriously be in danger. At the very least, someone's been sneaking themselves into our fucking trail without us knowing and mingling with us. Or at worst, something bad is in the forest fucking with us. One of the girls is crying and saying she wants to go right now. We're trying to tell her that we shouldn't because none of us are walking the woods in the middle of the night. At this point, the sun is starting to get low, and it's getting cloudy out. We eat something and turn on the radio for a while, but we really can't get a station out there with anything decent. So we turn off at about the time that Tan's cousin shows up. He was like 19, I think. At this point, the sun is just barely over the horizon, and he has one of his heavy-duty lantern flashlights and another rifle. He walks up to the trailer, and we whisper to Tan asking if he's sure that his cousin's, and he says yes. The guy looks behind him and all around the camp, then walks in. He kind of glances at all of us and looks a little confused. He says, where's your other little buddy at? I figured she would meet me up at the cabin. Is she a little slow or something? He also asked whether we'd been cooking blood in the cabin because it smelled like blood and hot pans all the way up the trail. We were all like, fucking nope. We asked him what the fuck he's talking about with the girl he saw. He had come down the same trail Tan had been using, and he'd come upon one of you's guys' buddies, standing in the middle of the trail, looking at him slack-jawed. He had asked her a bunch of questions, but all she did was just look at him. Then she smiled at him, and he just kept walking. She couldn't seem to keep up with him, and kept lagging a little behind him. He said he asked her if she was hurt or something, if she needed any help, but she continued to stare. Eventually, he had been walking and turned around a bend of the trail. But when he turned around and went back to see if she was okay, the trail was empty. He had assumed she had taken some shortcut through the woods to our trailer. We tell him the whole story of what's going on. I half expected him to say we were full of shit, but he just listened and sat down on the couches in the living room. Tanner's cousin gets back to the girl. He says when she had kept trying to lag behind him, it had kind of weirded him the fuck out, so he kept trying to keep her in front of him, but no matter how slow he walked, she was always lagging a little behind. And then he smelled this nasty smell, and it got stronger as he got to the camp. Eventually, it got really strong. She had said something really low that he didn't catch, and when he turned around, she went right the fuck up on him, and he stepped back from her. It was at this point he asked if she was okay, and if she wasn't, him to carry her back the rest of the way, and she just kept staring. He said she reached out for her, as in to grab her on the shoulder, but he must have misjudged the distance because she was off to the side of where he had put his hand, like she'd moved while he was looking dead at her. So at this point we know this shit's real unless Tan is playing a joke, which we can tell he's not because he's also pissing his pants. So they load up their rifles, we eat some more, and we just sit around until about 11. To this fucking day, every time I think about this, I really pray to God that it's some huge prank my cousins play to me and that just never revealed so I would shit for the rest of my life. At around 11, the stink of copper turns into a actually nasty, gross, blood-like smell, like cooking blood and singed hair. Tan and his cousin, Reese, get the fuck up instantly and grab the rifles. There's a half knocking, half clawing at the door, and I shit you not, there's this voice, and it sounds like when you see those YouTube cats and dogs, his owners teach them how to talk. It says in this halting, weirdly toned voice, "Let me the fuck in. Stop fucking playing." It made my fucking guts creep up against my body, and one of the girls just starts crying and calling on Jesus. It was so fucking obviously not a person talking. It didn't have the right cadence, and that's some shit I never realized until that moment. But all people have a certain cadence when they talk, no matter what language. All people have a certain kind of rhythm to talking. This shit didn't have any kind of cadence or rhythm. One of those YouTube cats, that's what the fuck it sounded like outside the door. So now I'm in full terror mode. We keep yelling outside, "Who is it? Stop fucking around, man." And it just keeps saying, "In," or "let me the fuck in," for almost 15 minutes. So then the smell goes away for a while, and the next hour or so you can hear somebody basically creeping around the woods and shit. Every couple of minutes it'll come back into the door and say something. Finally the smell fades away. It's around 2 in the morning right now. Reese says, "Man, fuck this," and opens the door and walks outside with a rifle. He fires a shot and says something to the effect of, "In the name of Jesus Christ, go away." He fires 2 more times, and the woods right up against the river across from the trailer. It sounds like something is slowly gibbering and hooting. Then it starts screaming. It sounds like a woman and a cat in a bag screaming together. Like, seriously, I have never heard any shit like that, and you can hear the brush over that way start to shake. Reese fires over to the tree line and starts back into the house. We lock the door, and we can hear this shit keening and screaming. Reese says something had come out of the bushes super low to the ground and started crawling toward the cabin. He had shot at it. Pretty much that's how the rest of the night went. It was literally screaming constantly for the next 2 hours, and we could see and we could hear shit moving out in the tree line, but it never came back up to the cabin until everyone had finally fallen asleep. Tanner had been sitting in the chair watching it with his rifle. Nobody else heard or saw this, and he told me 2 days later, after the whole thing was over. He said he'd been nodding off after the screaming and noises finally stopped, and he had been almost asleep when he saw someone come out of the bathroom and then lay down in the middle of the floor and go to sleep. He had just assumed it had been one of us, and he nodded off. Then he said he kind of realized something was wrong, and while pretending to be sleeping, he counted us. There were 9 people in the cabin. He basically didn't want to try to shoot the fucking thing in the cabin and have to kill us all then and there, or have Reese wake up and start shooting and then we kill ourselves. So we just stayed awake all night, pretending to be asleep. He says that sometimes it would stand up and kind of do this weird jittery thing, or heave like it was laughing. Then it would lay back down. The story closes pretty weak because from my perspective, nothing happened. We woke up and I noticed that Tan was a little jittery, and then he was avoiding looking at all of us. But we ate some breakfast, packed up, and started walking to his house. We stayed last in the cabin and said he'd lock up and bring my uncle's keys. Just start walking to catch up, which I didn't really want to fucking do. We got a little bit up the path, and when he came running up, basically we just jogged back to his house. His cousin took us home. There was a window in the bathroom. Tan had gone back to lock up and looked in there. We were too stupid to lock a screenless window. The window was fucking up when he went in there. I'm guessing it had been doing that all along, waiting for us to fall asleep or slip up and then getting in among us. He'd walk with us all the goddamn way back to his house, and then he said it lagged to the back of the group, looked him dead in the eyes before walking into the woods.